Welcome to The Checklist, brought to you by Secure Mac. I'm Ken Ray.
I'm Nicholas Raba.
And I'm Nicholas Tacek.
Now, Nicholas and Nicholas are security guys, and I'm not. What I'm here to do is pick their brains, because what we're going to do is each week we're going to tackle a topic having to do with hardware, software, security issues. If you've got new hardware that you're bringing into your life or sending existing hardware elsewhere, our hope and plan is to have you do that in as secure a way as possible. It is that time of year, although it feels to me like it's always that time of year. I think it was probably in 2015 that we started hearing about the iPhones that Apple would introduce in 2016, because that's the tech press. They just can't wait to see the next iPhone, even if they just got one a week before. So you've done your research now. You've picked out the phone that you want, because Apple's done that thing where they had everybody come out and, take a look at the phones from the stage. Here's the thing, though. You've got this old iPhone, and it's still got a lot of life left in it. So selling it or passing it on to somebody else may be part of your plan, but you really don't just want to hand your phone to somebody else, because so much of your life is on your phone right now. Your pictures, your text messages, work emails. I mean, tons of stuff that we walk around with. You don't want to sell that on eBay, even though you want to sell the phone on eBay. So the question that we're tackling today: what steps do you need to take to remove all of that personal data and make sure that your iPhone is ready for sale? So on today's checklist, it's the 5 things that you need to do before selling your old iOS device. And let's be clear about that. I mean, we're going to be talking largely about the iPhone because it's new iPhone season. But this would also be applicable for like an iPod Touch or an iPad or an iPad Mini or any of the 12 other kinds of iPads that are out there. Now, one thing that you do want to keep in mind, you want to have your new phone in hand before you do all of this stuff, because you want to make sure that your phone actually works. You don't want to be without one in preparation for another one. And if you've gone ahead and erased your old iPhone without having the new one to start using immediately, can you imagine being without your phone for a day? I can't. It's terrible, actually. It's terrible how much that scares me. You also want your old phone to fall back on if something happens to your new phone. Like, let's say it arrives damaged, or, you have some sort of hardware issue that keeps you from using it. Maybe you're holding it wrong, and Apple hasn't told you how you should hold your new phone yet to make sure that it works. All kinds of stuff to consider. So, I mean, the first thing is make sure you've got both phones before you start nuking your old one. But here are the 5 things that we're going to be hitting today. Unpair your Apple Watch from your iPhone. Make a backup of your iOS device. Wipe your device and remove it from Apple services. Contact your carrier to unlock your device. And finally, maximize your iPhone's resale value. Let's start at the top of that list. I'm actually surprised to see that the top of the list is unpairing your Apple Watch from your iPhone.
Yes, that's not one you'd necessarily think of. I actually made this mistake myself when I upgraded to my last iPhone. If you don't unpair the watch beforehand, it kind of is a pain to get it paired with the new one, because you have to have it unpaired from your old one. So
is it just looking for the old iPhone? I mean, is that, we do say paired, so I guess it thinks it's still attached to that old phone.
Yes, it does. And if you don't unpair it from your old iPhone before you go ahead and erase your old iPhone, you basically have to erase your Apple Watch and kind of start from scratch. So if you have any of your your health tracking data, any of that, the workout stuff, all of that stuff would be kind of lost if you're not unpairing it first, because part of the unpairing process automatically makes a backup of your Apple Watch settings. So then when you're restoring it later on, it's all set to go.
So, I mean, is it as simple as just hitting an unpair button? I mean, what do you do to actually get it away from one phone and start it towards another one?
It's pretty easy. You obviously need to have your Apple Watch close by to your phone. They need to be in proximity of each other. Then you'd open up the Watch app on your iPhone. On the My Watch tab, you would tap the name of your watch at the top of the screen and tap the little info button. Looks like a letter I inside a circle. And then you would tap Unpair Apple Watch. At that point, you'd have to confirm that you really do want to unpair it, which you would. Right. And your phone will start to make a backup of your Apple Watch. And that will be what you're using to restore your Apple Watch once you're pairing it with your new phone. Basically, the Apple Watch, in between being paired, has to kind of be reset to a to factory settings either way. So making this backup will then, you don't have to rearrange all your little phone icons and all the other customization you did to the watch icons. You don't have to rearrange all that stuff and take all that time. It'll be basically all backup, and then when you're on your new phone, it will be the exact same setup.
It's kind of crazy. They're like Russian nesting dolls, right? What are they? I can't remember what those dolls are called, but so you make a backup of your watch to your phone, and then you're going to make a backup of your phone to something else, and they're all kind of nestled inside each other. So, I mean, just so I'm clear then, the whole unpairing your watch from your phone is really just about making sure that the functionality of your watch continues into your new phone, that you keep all of that information. It's not so much worry of selling the information from my watch to somebody else when I sell it on eBay or something like that.
Exactly. I mean, you would obviously want to be wiping your watch too if you're going to sell your watch on eBay.
Yeah.
But in this case, this is just the step of making sure that you can pair your watch with your new phone and you're not having to start from scratch.
It's amazing to think about how at the beginning we are with Apple Watch. It was 2 years ago, I guess, this month, that we first had the Apple Watch confirmed. And it was about a year and a half before that we started hearing rumors that Apple was going to do something in a wearable. And yet, I won't say that the Apple Watch is dumb by any stretch of the imagination, but I'll bet if we have this conversation in 2 years, it's going to be, okay, 5 steps to secure your Apple Watch. As opposed to just unpair it and repair it. But
think back to the original iPhones, how antiquated those seem compared to the iOS 10 compared to iOS 1.
Yeah,
it's just insane.
It is. But we can talk about the all of the security issues with the watch in a couple of years, let's say, or as they come up. All right. So the second thing is making a backup of your iOS device. I'm curious. Well, I mean, tell me what the steps are as far as you're concerned here, because, of course, you've got like iCloud doing a backup, but I'm assuming that you're actually talking about, I'm going to guess, without looking at your notes, that you want to back up to a computer. Walk me through what you would do getting ready to sell the iPhone and making a backup of it.
It's kind of, it's technically up to the user. You could, yes, you can go with just the iCloud backup. The issue there would be you're limited to the amount of space you have on iCloud. So if you have the free, 5 gigabyte account or whatever it is, that's generally not enough space to have everything backed up. If you pay for larger storage space on iCloud, it generally can hold pretty much everything you need. But it's always a good idea to go ahead and make that second backup on your computer. Just because if something would happen with, say, iCloud, if there was an issue with the backup going to iCloud or getting the backup back from iCloud for whatever reason, having an extra backup on your computer, or the reverse, having the backup in iCloud as well as your computer, is just a redundant backup, which is usually the way to go when you're backing up data. A lot of times, when you're talking about companies, for example, they'll have on-site backups as well as off-site backups. So keeping a duplicate backup, basically means that if something happens to your first backup, you're not totally out of luck. So either way, whichever route you're going, you want to make sure that your phone is backed up with the most recent data. If you have it set for iCloud backups, I think that only will happen automatically, like at night when your phone is plugged in and connected to Wi-Fi.
Right.
If you don't have a Wi-Fi signal for whatever reason, or you forget to plug your phone in, any of those steps, you're not going to have the latest backup. So there are ways to manually initiate the backups, and you'd want to be doing one or both of these for sure before you're wiping your phone. To make the iCloud backup, you got to make sure it's plugged into a wall charger, because it can take some time, and you don't want your phone battery to die in the middle of the backup. Make sure you're connected to your Wi-Fi network, and then on your phone you'd open up the settings app, and scroll down to the iCloud section, tap that, scroll down again, tap backup, and then you would verify on that screen that the switch for iCloud backup is enabled. Once you've made sure that's turned on, there's a backup now button that you can tap. And it'll take a while, especially if you have, a lot of pictures, a lot of files, stuff that hasn't been backed up in a while. So stay connected to your Wi-Fi network until that entire process is complete. And it can take a while. Just leave your phone on the counter or whatever, take a look at it every once in a while. After the backup's complete, you still would want to verify that it finished correctly. And you can find that, again, in the Settings app in the iCloud section. Then there's a storage section you can tap on. And if you tap Manage Storage, you'll see your devices listed there. Mm-hmm. You'd select your phone, and it will say, time and date of last backup, and basically make sure that that backup was today or the day you made the backup on.
See, what's interesting, though, is you say to me, make sure that it worked properly. But to an extent, is the iCloud backup, and forgive me, it's been a while since I've actually looked at the settings. I know I said it a long time ago. I know it makes an iCloud backup every night because I am on Wi-Fi and they do plug in. But when you do a backup to iTunes, which I know we're going to talk about in a minute, you can actually choose what's backed up, can't you?
Exactly.
And do you have the same kind of choices there in iCloud, or is iCloud going through and backing up everything?
That's a good question. I want to say iCloud backs up a general list of things, and they don't actually give you the options to do them on an individual basis like they do on the computer. Okay. But I believe, I can just double check that here. They do. I think it depends on what you have iCloud set up to. In iCloud, sorry, let me go back a second. In iCloud, you can kind of enable different content that's synced with iCloud. So, your mail, contacts, calendars, reminders, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And I believe the backup is based on what stuff you have enabled there. Okay. But it does not give you as much control on your phone as you would have in iTunes in terms of the individual aspects of what's being backed up. Okay. Now, for people who have been iOS device users before it was called iOS, you have to remember, it seems likely that you'll remember making backups in iTunes manually. But, let's make sure that people do know how to do that. What are the steps that we need to take to make the backup in iTunes on a Mac or a PC?
Oh, it's pretty simple. Just open up iTunes, make sure that your device is connected to it, and then you'll see the icon for your phone. Under Summary, if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see Backups. Automatically backup, you could select iCloud, of course. This computer, I enjoy having a backup to a local computer. And then from there, you could actually encrypt your iPhone backups and set your password for it. The other thing you're able to do also is start the manual backup. And just clicking manual backup will start the backup process on your computer right there. Underneath it, it lists the latest backup. Mine was at 9:38 a.m. this morning.
Braggart.
So keep your backups current.
A couple of things to note with regards to the backups on the computer. The first would be making sure you have enough space on your hard drive. Mm-hmm. If you have, gigs and gigs of photos, or like, for example, the text messages, if you get lots of pictures or videos from friends, those can take up a ton of space on your iPhone. Mm-hmm. I think I have something like 8 gigs worth of messages on my phone. So when you're backing up to your computer, you need to make sure you got enough space for those backups. In addition, the option to encrypt the backup is something we'd recommend, just because otherwise it's really easy to extract data from the backup. If anyone has access to your computer, they can just copy the backup file and you can get all sorts of personal information out of the backup. So if you encrypt the backup, that would stop that. In addition, encrypting a backup is necessary in order for the health data to be backed up. Encryption must be enabled before iTunes will be able to back up your health data, and that's just something Apple forces, for health law compliance reasons.
We're up to step 3, and this is quite possibly our item 3 on the checklist, and this is always the scariest one. Reset your iPhone to erase all of the content and settings and remove it from Apple services. And this is iCloud, iTunes in the cloud, and other trusted devices. If you've done your backups and all that stuff, this is not scary, but there's still something about that button. I'm always amazed when you go to Apple. When you go to the Apple store and they have to do something and they're like, okay, we're going to erase this. And you're like, fine. And they're like, okay, really, we're going to erase it. And you're like, okay. And they're like, okay, you push the button. There's something momentous about that moment. Talk to me about this step.
Okay. Well, first of all, before this step, make sure you have those backups.
Yeah. Did we talk about backups? I can't remember.
Yeah. Back it up one more time.
Because if you don't, it's not going to be pleasant.
Yeah.
The other thing to keep in mind is Apple provides a way to erase everything with like 1 or 2 taps, and that's the route you're going to want to go. You do not want to be manually deleting your photos or your contacts or any of that stuff. All of that will be done automatically when you're resetting the device. If you are logged into iCloud and you start deleting photos or notes or any of that stuff, it's going to delete those from iCloud, and then that's going to propagate to any of your other devices logged into iCloud. So it will delete it from your computer, your other iPad, iCloud itself, and you'll lose that data from everywhere. So that's not the right way to do it. And there's something to be said there about user interfaces and ease of use that could be improved upon.
Well, I mean, they're always going for simpler, right? I mean, they envision a world where I say I don't want this information anymore, and it goes, okay, well, we'll just get rid of all of that information. I mean, I can think of like maybe a user interface where you could say take this information off of this device but not off of this one, but at the same time that adds a level of complexity, and Apple tends to they don't quite want to go Fisher Price on things, but they want to make things as easy as possible. The only problem is that can also make destroying things as easy as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So we've made sure we have our backups in case we accidentally do delete everything from iCloud. But we're not going to go that route. So basically what you're going to be doing is really simple. You'll, again, go back to the Settings app where we seem to be spending most of the time here. You will tap General, and then tap the reset button, as scary as it is, and then tap erase all contents and settings. If you have a passcode, you will be prompted to enter your passcode. So some random person has your phone, they can't go ahead and, as a joke, erase your phone. So then you tap erase, which would completely wipe the device. That basically will take care of securely wiping everything from the phone. It can't be recovered. The way the iPhone is set up with the chip encryption and everything else, you can't access the data once that key has been wiped from the phone. So it's unlike old school computer hard drives where you could run a disk recovery utility and get data off of that. It's just not possible. So it can actually, resetting the iPhone doesn't take as long. Like back in the day when you'd erase your hard drive, if you erased it securely, it would take 14 hours or something like that. The phone it's really quick. This will ensure that when you go ahead to sell your phone on eBay or you give it to a family member, that all of your personal data is no longer accessible on the device.
I'm trying to figure out how you've got a good point in here, and yet I'm trying to figure out how you might be able to do this. But I guess I don't worry about how you might be able to do it. Just what do you do if this is the case? Somehow I've accidentally passed my phone on, but I haven't erased it. Somehow my phone has ended up in somebody else's hands, but it's still got a bunch of my old content on it, my old stuff. What do I do at that point?
Well, if you know the person who you sold it to, or family member, the first step would be to ask them very nicely to follow those steps and wipe your phone.
Very sheepishly.
Yeah. Mom, do me a favor without looking in pictures.
Exactly. But on the other side of things, if it's some stranger on eBay, you can't really trust that they're actually going to do that. So you would want to be going to log into iCloud, the website iCloud.com, with your Apple ID that's associated with that phone, and you can wipe the device remotely. Basically, that will, as long as the phone was basically still connected to some sort of network, it will send the remote command to wipe the phone. That's what you'd also use if you had the phone lost or if it got stolen. But say the phone's not connected to a network and you can't wipe it remotely and you can't contact the person. Well, what you'd want to do then is make sure you change your Apple ID password so the old device at least can't access any more of your purchases or data or anything like that.
Right.
But that's a really worst case scenario, and you don't really ever want to get to that point. So make sure you wipe your device before you give it away or sell it.
Yeah.
Any of your email passwords or any other apps for banking or anything like that, you'll want to make sure that those passwords are changed as well.
So that's getting all of the information then off of the phone. But then we had also talked about the fact that your phone is going to be tied into some of the Apple services as well. How do we make sure that I mean, is that just as simple as changing your Apple ID password, or are there other things that we have to do to make sure that they're clear of those?
There are other things, actually, and this one surprised me because when I was doing some research for this topic, I found out that I still had a couple of my old iPhones, like dead hardware that's sitting in a drawer somewhere, still associated and taking up space on, I think it was my iTunes in the cloud, which I realized then, that's why Apple kept saying I'd reached my maximum number of devices anytime I got a new piece of hardware and I'd have to reset what was allowed. Basically, Apple has up to 3 different places where you potentially would have to remove your phone, your device from, to remove it completely from Apple's system and services. That would be iCloud itself, iTunes in the cloud, which is used for playing your music on your different devices, and then trusted devices, which is part of Apple's two-factor security measures, two-factor authentication. So we can cover each of those since they are separate areas on Apple's site to remove them from. So iCloud itself, again, we'd go back to iCloud.com, and there's a settings section there. And in the settings section, you would locate your device in the list. There's a My Devices section, and your computers and anything else that's associated with that iCloud account will be listed there. When you click on your device, there's a little X button that will appear, and you can remove the device from iCloud. So that will basically take care of iCloud not thinking there's a device that is lost or needs to be synced or any of that stuff. So that takes care of iCloud. For the Apple ID for iTunes in the cloud, basically the thing that says you're authorized to use a maximum of, I think it's like 5 or 10 different devices to play your music from your iTunes account. As you add more hardware, it takes up another slot in that. So you obviously want to remove your old devices once you get rid of them so you can listen to your music on your new one. You would go into iTunes itself to take care of this. And then there's the account menu at the top of the screen, and you'd click View My Account. At that point, you'd probably have to log into your Apple ID, and then an account information screen would appear. There's a iTunes in the cloud section about halfway down that screen with a Manage Devices button. So you click on that, and then there's a list of any of your devices that are associated with that Apple ID. So you'd find your phone that you were getting rid of and click the Remove button for it, which would disassociate it with your Apple ID, and basically it would no longer count against the maximum number of devices you have. And then finally, you would want to remove your phone or your device from trusted devices associated with your Apple ID if you have set up two-factor authentication for your Apple ID. Not everybody does this, but it's something to keep in mind. What would happen is if you have a trusted device and you're logging into your Apple ID with two-factor authentication enabled, Apple will send a code to a trusted device, and then that code is used to complete the login to your Apple ID. So if somebody has your old phone and it's still a trusted device and they somehow get your Apple ID password, it's not a situation you'd want to have. So you would have to go to appleid.apple.com, log into your account, and then there's a security section. And if you have the device, your old device listed in the trusted devices section, you would click on the little X button to remove it from there. And then one thing to note with all 3 of those, you can do those after you've wiped your phone. You can do those after you've sold your phone. Obviously, it's better if you do it before you sell your phone. But if you would forget, or say you hadn't ever done this before, like for me, when I found I had a couple old phones listed in my account, it might be worthwhile to check these anyway and clear out any of those old devices that you no longer have, just to free up some of those slots in iTunes in the cloud and basically make things a little more organized as you add more and more devices.
I do want to, well, there are a couple of things on there. I mean, first of all, I've actually bumped up against the 5 computer maximum for playing songs purchased in iTunes before. And it's kind of a pain because like one of the computers, I don't even know that the computer actually exists anymore. It was years ago when iTunes first hit. And it was a work computer, actually. And all it was authorizing songs with DRM to play. So it's not like there's a computer out there with my Apple ID or anything like that. But it's just gone, daddy gone. So like keeping up with the stuff as you go, really is an excellent idea, because even though you think, well, I'm only ever going to have one Mac, I'm only ever going to have one iPhone. Well, that's probably true, like, at a time. But, I mean, electronics are so prevalent at this point in our lives that you're going to hit that 5-device limit or that 10-device limit at some point. Then you're really going to wish you had access to the old ones before doing that. There were a lot of steps just right there in step 3, so I want to remind people, you're going to be able to find all of these steps at securemac.com. And I'll remind you about that again at the end. But if you're thinking, I've already forgotten half that, I mean, first of all, this is a podcast, so you can rewind and listen to it again. But we're also going to have the steps listed at securemac.com. So don't freak out, because you'll have a guide to help you along besides just us here.
But one thing I don't want you to forget is to do that backup. And then when you do that backup,
okay,
if you're doing it to your computer and you encrypt that backup, make sure you remember that password. Because when it comes time down the road to back up that data and you don't know that password, it becomes much more of a pain to get that data back on your phone if you've only made one backup to your computer.
Okay. You know, well, now you're just scaring people again. Which I guess
to scare people. I just want people to remember their passwords for their
right.
backups.
Yes. It was at some point we're going to have to talk about. Well, I can't imagine we're going to do this show and not talk about password security, but we're going to have to talk a lot about that at some point. I came across. I was in an office supply place the other day, and they were selling a notebook for you to write all of your computer passwords in. No lie. They had like a section. They had a section for banking. They had a section for your computer. They had a section for help stuff. And I thought, well, this is great because it makes it so much easier for identity thieves. Just grab that book, and they've got all of access to all of your stuff. But we're not talking about that today. We'll talk about that soon, I would imagine. Let's go on to step number 4, because you're ready to sell this stuff. You're ready to get this stuff off to somebody else now. This one wouldn't have occurred to me. Contact your carrier for help unlocking your iPhone and transferring your service to a new owner. What?
This one is it can be rather confusing because there are like 3 really similar sounding things involved in this.
Okay.
There's what's called a carrier lock, which limits your iPhone to be able to be used on a specific cell phone carrier. So, you can use it on Verizon, or you can use it on AT&T or Sprint, but you can't use it on all 3 at once if it's locked to a single carrier.
Right.
Then there's an activation lock, which is the security feature that works with Apple with Find My iPhone to locate your device, remotely wipe it, stuff for loss or theft situations. And then finally there's jailbreaking, which is something done to allow arbitrary non-app store apps on the phone. So those 3 things all kind of sound the same. So to clarify here, when you took the step to erase everything on your phone, all the content and settings, it would have automatically disabled Apple's activation lock security system. So that you don't have to worry about. Jailbreaking you don't have to worry about because that has nothing to do with this. We're talking about the carrier lock here. Now, removing the carrier lock is not something that is supported by all of the carriers in the United States. It's actually kind of rare here. It's more common in Europe, other countries. But you could still check. Apple has a page on their site that lists carriers that support unlocking, which will have the URL available in the guide on the website. Otherwise, you could call your carrier to see if they would unlock your phone so it could be transferred to a new owner. Otherwise, when you're selling the phone, you'd have to specify this is a AT&T phone because of the different hardware and required for different types of phone networks. If you have the opportunity to unlock it, the carrier unlock, it would dramatically increase the trade-in value or resale value. So it's a step you want to take if you can take the step. But again, not every carrier will allow you to do that. So it's something you'd have to look into first.
It's something a lot of them don't want to do. It's usually something that they can, but man, the hoops you have to jump through to get them to do it. It really would be much easier, like if you have an AT&T phone, to sell it to somebody who is going to be using AT&T as well, or somebody who already does.
Exactly. It's generally much easier just to say this is an AT&T phone. That way, if you have a customer who buys it and they have a phone network that it wouldn't work with your phone hardware anyway. You're not having somebody leaving negative feedback or any of that stuff. But again, if you have the option and opportunity, it's something to definitely consider.
They have the list of those on their website, which providers support the unlocking of it as well. And when you travel overseas and you want to use a different SIM card because you're on a totally different network and you want to avoid some of those charges, a lot of carriers will let you unlock for that as well.
You mentioned the SIM card, by the way. I don't have a clear understanding of what it is the SIM card does for me and what information is held on there, and yet you've got it listed here as a security feature. You want to be sure to remove the SIM card from your iPhone before you sell it, or, as we said before, from your iOS device if it's a cellular one. So if you got one of the iPads with cellular connectivity, I mean, if the SIM card is removable, you want it out. First of all, I guess talk to me about why, and then second, just how do you do that?
Well, getting the SIM card out of the device is pretty easy as long as you have a paperclip handy. Pretty much on the side of your phone, you'll insert the paperclip, press it in, and the tray will come out, and your SIM card will come out with it. And on your SIM card, traditionally, it stores unique data to your phone. A lot of times, it'll contain your contact information or other relevant information to your phone. So when you remove your SIM card, you're making sure that any backup copies that were to your SIM card are protected as well. And then from the iPhone, under the settings, you also have an option under there called SIM PIN. Basically, you're able to set up a password for your SIM card in order for you to unlock it and get the data off it or use the SIM card on a new device. And if you don't enter that password correctly or the PIN code correctly, then you won't be able to use that SIM card. So contact information, I would have to double check to see what other information is on there. But when I've moved phones from phone to phone, without backing up from the iCloud or computer, I've had contact information show up on there immediately.
And I believe I might be wrong about this, but in the past, I think it was with non-smartphones, but it associated the phone number with a phone. Okay. I believe it was something like that, basically letting the carrier know that this SIM card is this account, essentially. Right. So when the phone's connected to the network, it knows that it's activated and can be used. And even barring the security issues, I mean, the next person who gets your phone is going to have their own SIM card anyway. So exactly. If nothing else, you're just making that one step easier for them. But of course, for all the security reasons, and what with this being that kind of show, that's definitely something you want to do. All right, step 5. We've done almost everything. We're actually looking now at making sure that you can maximize your iPhone's resale value, or making sure that your iPhone is as good as it can possibly be for the next person who's going to have it, whether you're passing it on to, friend, family member, cousin, whatever, or you're selling it to somebody on eBay or Gazelle, something like that. What are the things I need to do to make sure it's the best it can possibly be before I send it off into the world?
Clean it. You would be surprised how many devices are listed or how many pictures are taken of dirty devices just as is, seeing the fingerprints all over it or their kids' food or anything else on it. Yeah. Clean your device. Definitely want to make sure that you just give it a quick shine and make sure it looks pretty. Take your picture of it on a nice clean surface, and make sure all your accessories are clean as well if you're gonna sell it with your accessories. A couple things to note there. I mean, this one isn't necessarily a security tip, but it's just something that can help you maximize your resale value. Yeah. If a lot of Apple users, myself included, keep the boxes that the hardware comes in, because I mean Apple makes really, really nice boxes essentially. Yeah. They're almost works of art. But what happens when you keep those is you not only have a secure way to ship the phone,
that's going to be padded and protecting the phone from damage in shipping. But it's again, a lot of users would like to have to be able to buy a phone that comes with as much of the original material as possible. I wouldn't recommend sending the earbuds along if you use them, because that's just kind of gross. But a lot of people will buy higher end headphones for their iPhones, and never use the Apple earbuds. In which case, just go ahead and send those. But the wall charger, charging cable, if you still have it, any of that stuff will help maximize the resale value. One thing to note with the cleaning, to backtrack a second there, is that if you have a case on your phone, one of the Apple leather cases or an OtterBox or anything like that, make sure you take the case off, even if you're selling it with the case, but make sure you take the case off during cleaning, because you'd be surprised at how much of the dirt and grime and pocket lint can get behind the case, and you'd never know it was there, and you take the case off and you're like, oh, that's really gross.
It's so disgusting. It really, I mean, I had one, I can't remember if it was one of the Apple ones or what, but it had a circle so that you could see the Apple logo. And then when you took the case off it, it was like somebody had taken a marker and like drawn a circle around the Apple logo, because all that ick, just
lines.
Tan lines. Oh, I like that. Okay. Yes, that actually maximize sale value. No, this iPhone's just been relaxing the whole time. You don't need to worry about that. That tan line's an extra $50.
Hey, the other thing, and a lot of times people will keep their iPhones until the next iPhone comes out, even though they dropped it, even though the screen broke. You could get that extra money out of your phone just by repairing the screen. Yeah, it may cost you $75 to repair the screen, but you're selling a working, fully functional iPhone instead of a broken iPhone. And you'll see that the resale value on that is much higher just by taking that little bit of time and money beforehand to fix the screen.
That would obviously be dependent on what generation your broken iPhone would be. You wouldn't want to be doing that with like an iPhone 4 that you've had in your drawer with a broken screen for a few years. If you had a 6S though, had a broken screen, really recent generation that's almost brand new, that's still worth enough money that doing something like getting the screen repaired could add a little bit of resale value to your device.
Very true.
I actually wonder about my original iPhone has a broken screen. I wonder if that's kind of well, that would be something for me to figure out at some point, I suppose, if I were ever going to get rid of it, which, how could I? It's my original iPhone.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe supply and demand for the parts, there's just so many extra available. Now you wouldn't even have to pay $80 to get it replaced. Now maybe it would only be $20 because nobody's repairing them anymore.
On the other hand, it could be vintage now and they could be harder to get. But that's, that's something to figure out, I suppose, if I ever decide to actually get that screen repaired. All right, so all these steps, and now we're finally ready to sell the device on like eBay, or trade it in on a program like Gazelle, or maybe with Apple's Renew program or something like that. Following these security steps and also these resale value steps actually are going to make parting with your constant companion for the past couple of years about as easy as it can be. I want to remind people, if you missed any of those steps, or if you want to go back to any of those steps, we are going to have the checklist available at securemac.com. And lots of other security information there as well. Just a good resource for keeping up on some of the latest security news and goings-on, both around iOS devices and, of course, around the Mac as well. If you have a question for us, if you have a particular topic you would like for us to hit, our email address is checklist@securemac.com. That is checklist@securemac.com. And if you have any trouble remembering that name, you're listening to The Checklist. And we'll talk to you soon.